All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first Blue Team workshop. I'm glad everybody can make it. I'm really excited for these. I don't think these have been done in a while. They kind of been neglecting like the workshops in the past years, I believe. So I wanted to make sure they get done so that people can get some hands-on experience. And so the day of the competition, you're not just going in completely blind. And yeah, for people on Discord, this is going to be recorded and posted. People can watch it. Ideally, so today we're going to be going over, we're going to be focusing on Linux and Windows. And within that, we're also going to be looking at the different services that you might see in a competition environment like this. And what I want you to do is, while it is good to take in as much information as you can today, there's going to be a lot. So I want you to look at these slides after, see what you can do. And if you don't already have one, request an OpenStack account. And as soon as you can, just start playing with some of these services. So whatever we talk about today, just take some time on your own to go into OpenStack, launch a VM, see if you can get this service up and running. It'll help you a lot in understanding how it works, understanding how to interface with it. So when you day of the competition, it's not the first time you're doing it. I think it'll be a great practice for you to do. So we're going to start our workshop now. It's going to be Alexi presenting on Linux, just in general, Linux and how it's going to be looking like in the competition, some services. But first, I just wanted to go over some competition logistics with everybody. While this is not everybody on Blue Team, this is maybe like close to 40 people. And there's going to be a little more than double that the day of the competition. I just wanted to go over some stuff with you. So you might have heard it a bunch of times, but just to reiterate, there are going to be 4 different teams. So Blue Team, that's you. You're going to have your own infrastructure. You're going to have a bunch of different services. You'll see what you'll have closer to the competition. There's going to be a packet sent out with just some context on the theme that we're going to have for the competition, your infrastructure, the users that you're going to log in with, and all that. So your job is going to be defend against red team by maintaining service uptime and completing designated injects. Injects we're going to talk about in the next slide. But when we talk about services today, what's going to be really important for you during the competition is to make sure that they're up and running. So if you have an HTTP server, are you able to see it as a user if you go to that IP address? Are you able to see it? If yes, that means your service is up, you're going to get points for it. If it's down, you try and connect to that web server and it's saying it's not accepting requests or like permission denied, stuff like that, it's down and you're not going to get any points for that. So that's just how it's going to look like for Blue Team. And kind of along those terms, Red Team, they are going to be doing anything in their power to make sure that your services are not up. Basically, how this is going to work is the day of the competition, you are going to have your infrastructure, which already has the red team's malware and all their tools, or not all of them, but some of them deployed on there. So it is already compromised the second you log on. This is why it's an incident response competition. And you're going to have to work towards, finding where all that malware is. Why is my stuff not working? And then once you find that, get rid of it. And now you want to start defending your systems, making sure they don't get in further down the competition. Black Team. Alexi is my Linux lead for Black Team, hence why he's presenting today. They are the people that are setting up the entire competition. So we've been working for a few weeks now, setting up all the stuff that you're actually going to be using. So all those there if you're looking at some kind of Linux server that was set up by the Linux team, they're going to be there during the competition, troubleshooting things. When things go wrong, they're going to try and fix them. If there's some issue with your VMs, maybe infra might tear them down and put them right back up. So that's something that happens pretty frequently. So that's Black Team. And then White Team, they are going to be your main point of contact throughout the competition. There's going to be some people helping out with, just like grading injects, like stuff like that. We're going to be talking about that in the next slide. Also, if we need more chairs and stuff, you can probably just like take them from outside or the other lab. I'm sure it's fine. And yeah, so white team, they're going to be walking around helping you out, troubleshooting issues for you might have. If you have issues, talk to white team. Yeah. And this is kind of your first look at how scoring actually works during the competition. So like I talked about before, you're going to have a lot of scored services up. And there's going to be a scoring engine that we have deployed that constantly checks for whether it is up. It's going to send some kind of request, and if it gets a good response, that means your service is up and you're going to get points for it. If it doesn't, you don't get points. And now your other major source of points during the competition are injects. So these are going to be tasks that are sent out periodically throughout the competition. This could be, I think a very common one is like take inventory of all your infrastructure. So that's like usually like the first one they send out. So you're going to just write down all of your services, your IP addresses, and you're going to submit them to the injects team. So white team is going to come around, they're going to collect your injects, and then the injects team is going to grade them, kind of like an assignment. However, it's going to be a little more interesting because it's going to fit in with the theme that we have. It's going to be a lot of fun. And it's stuff that you would do, like kind of auditing your own system throughout the competition. And that's going to be a major source of points. Make sure it's going to be professional. Like the way you respond should be in a professional manner. It's always fun to also like stay on theme. More on that later. And then finally, there's going to be a final incident response report. However, I don't want you to focus too much on that at this moment. This is why we're going into more just talking about Linux and Windows today, so you have an idea. We are going to, one of the later workshops we're going to have is talking about writing incident response reports, having like a 5-minute plan, all that stuff. But for today, we're just going to be talking about Linux and Windows. And yeah, so I'm just going to hand it over to Alexi, and he's going to do this presentation.
All right. How's it going? So we're going to talk about Linux. There's a bit of an overview of what we're going to talk about, just like firewalls, some like commands, yeah, and like kind of like how you can like interact with Linux like in general. So what is Linux? Linux, it's like an open source kernel, and you kind of have like operating systems that are like built on top of it. You also have BSD. So like Linux and BSD, they're both like Unix-like, but they're like a little bit different. Yeah, BSD. Yeah, and some like common distributions you're probably gonna see are like Debian-based. If you have some like Debian-based distributions, maybe like Ubuntu, or like Kali. Kali's kind of like your hacking OS. You're probably gonna see like Ubuntu or something like more like common, maybe like Debian on there. And you also have like Red Hat-based ones. You have like Rocky or like CentOS and Fedora. Yeah, you're probably gonna see like one of like each of these, so probably like a Debian, like Red Hat, and a BSD. So I would get like comfortable or like do a little bit of research on like all three and like play around with them. Yeah. So firewalls. Firewalls are like a red team's worst nightmare. You want to like really learn how to make them. If they can't, like if red team like can't connect to your box, then they're probably not gonna be able to do anything on it. Well, they're gonna be able to because they have like backdoors, but yeah, it's a good way to like prevent them from like messing with your services. Yeah, and you have kind of like IP tables is kind of like your de facto like Linux firewall. It's like pretty powerful, and you can do a lot of stuff with it. I'd recommend like looking into that one. And you also have like UFW, which is like it's kind of like it like uses IP tables, but it like makes it simpler. It's just like not as complicated to block ports or like IPs, for example. And you also have Firewall D, which is kind of like the IP tables equivalent on like Red Hat. So maybe like Rocky, you would use like IP or Firewall D. And yeah, make sure like you also test, if you're gonna write firewall rules, make sure you test them thoroughly, because if you can like, it's gonna be like very easy to like block your own services as well if you just like kind of mess up and like don't test them. I did that like first like when I was like blue teaming for IRSeC last year, I kind of just like blocked SSH by accident. Yeah, don't do that. Yeah.
So if you're looking for something that you might want to do to get a little more experience with this, like I said before, you go on OpenStack, create a VM, create 2 VMs, and try and ping one with the other. And then after that, see if it goes through. After that, try and set up a firewall rule. See if you can successfully get it to not reach the other one. If you do, then that means that your firewall rules, IP tables worked. It's actually able to block it.
Yeah, you can have like a service running on. Oh, sorry. Yeah, you can have like a service running on like one VM, and like set up the firewall rules for that service and see if they work. Yeah, that's a good way. So here's just like kind of like a dump of some like useful commands you can use to like interact with Linux. Probably the most useful one is man. It just kind of tells you like how to use a command and like utilities on the system. So if you don't know what something does, you can use the man command to like learn more about it. The other ones like psaux, which is like prints like all the like processes on the system. TCP dump is kind of like it's like basically just like command line like CLI like Wireshark, so you can like see the traffic that's like coming from your box and like going out. Yeah, and like interacting with some files like cat, vim, or nano, like touch. They all good to like just get like comfortable with and like mess around with. Yeah, you can also if you also like want to know what a command does, you can run like you add like the tac h or like tac help. It'll just give you like a quick overview of like how to use that command. Yeah. So like configuration files. Basically all your configuration files are gonna be in /etc, and yeah, like these are like kind of like the configurations like for the services that are gonna be running on your system. You have some like common ones that you should like definitely know, like etc password and like etc group maybe. Etc password just kind of contains user information. Just like know how that looks, and like if you a very common one, you're gonna see like users that are like not supposed to be on your system. So if you like cat etc password, you can like see the users that are on the box and like see, oh, maybe like this red team user is not supposed to be there. Maybe I should remove them. Yeah, they're also gonna like the users that like red team adds are gonna be like pretty obvious names. So like you're gonna know, and you also have like a list of users that are supposed to be on the system. So you're gonna like know which ones are like supposed to be there or not. You also have like etc hosts, which kind of just like map like IP addresses to host names. You might be able to do some like yeah, all of these kind of you're gonna like. I would just like look into all of these and like see like what they look like. Yeah.
And from the perspective of someone who did do red team before, these are not just important for you to know like that your service is working and that it used the right things, it's set up correctly. But red team can tamper with these configuration files. So like one of the things that I did when I was able to get access to a machine, it was a SSH check. SSH uses port 22, and that's specified in the /etc sshd.conf file. It specifies that it's supposed to use port 22 there, but I just switched it to like port 1738 or something. And then when the checks tried to go through, it was not running on the same port, so it didn't work. So this is somewhere to look for like changes from red team. It's important to know just like where your configs are.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely just like get comfortable, like Maxim said, like just know what they look like, so like you can spot like differences maybe. Like if like you see like, oh, that's kind of weird, maybe that shouldn't be on there. Yeah, I think you can also use like the find command to like see. There's like an option to see like when like a file was like last modified, so you can use that and check when like files have been like recently modified to like see if maybe red team like messed with some of your configs. Yeah, you also have like user specific configs such as like bashrc, yeah, which might also get like messed with. So just like know what those look like, yeah, and like get comfortable with them. So like users and groups, there's some like just like commands that you can use to like modify users and groups. I would just use this as a reference. But yeah, definitely password or like change password are gonna be like useful because you want to like that's like the first thing you're gonna want to do is like change your passwords. even though like red team is probably gonna have all of them anyway, you want to like just change them from the default. And you can use those two commands. And like I said, if you see like a user that's not supposed to be on there, you can like delete it with a user del. Yeah, and also file permission commands. If you need to like for some reason change like the permissions of a file, maybe you want to like set up like a file so that like only like some certain user can like interact with it, or you want to make it like privileged, only privileged users can like interact with that file. You can use like the file permission commands such as like chown or like change group, or like chmod. Really, chmod is like probably like the most like useful one there, but they're all like pretty good, useful. And yeah, like as I mentioned like previously, you have those configuration files for like users and groups. So like etc password, etc shadow, and etc group. Etc shadow just contains like file hashes, or like hashes, not file hashes, hashes of like the passwords for like users. And like etc group just contains like user information, or like not user group information, I mean, sorry, like on the host. Yeah. So logging. Logging is going to be like really helpful for you to like see what's happening on the machine. So on like Debian, you can look in var log syslog, and Red Hat, you can look on like var log messages. Those are just like some useful commands that like, help you like read the logs. That first one, honestly, you can just use like grep and like pass in I believe it's the like the string you're like the regex you're looking for, and then like the file, and that'll grep it in just like one command. Bit nitpicky, but yeah. And then if you also just want to like see like the first like X lines of like a file, or like the last ones, you can use like the head and tail command. Those can be useful. You also have
What are some things you might see in a log file?
That's a good question. Kind of asset logging, but yeah, you'll see like if you'll see like changes like on the system. So if like red team does something that they're like maybe not supposed to do, you'll see that like in the logs, and you'll see something like changed, and you can go back and like see like maybe if that service is down, you can like check in the logs and like see what happened, so you can like try to bring that service back up. Yeah, you also have like journal CTL, which will just read like service logs. It's kind of like logs like for your services that are like on the system. Yeah. Okay, so like these are just like some common Linux services. I can like guarantee that you're gonna see at least some of these on the system, on like the boxes. So I would definitely just like know all like most of them or like all of them, and like be prepared to like know what they are and like how they're supposed to like work and look. Yeah, like Maxim said earlier, I would just like recommend setting up like a VM maybe, and just like playing around with like try to set up the services and like play around, and then like after you have them set up, you can like mess around with them and like try to like maybe break them or like change the configs and see what like the different sorts of configurations do. Yeah. So SSH also, like, yeah, you definitely want to know what SSH is. This is like a lot of people, I think, just like go like they don't know how to like SSH like onto the boxes. Like you have like access to your like LAN boxes, but then you need to like SSH into the cloud boxes. So definitely know how to use it. It's basically just allows you to like get a remote shell on like a remote box that's running the SSH server. Yeah. So by default, it will authenticate as a like or with like just like a password. You like give it the user and then like the host, and then it'll ask you for the password. However, that's not as secure as just like setting up like public key authentication. So you can there's like good tutorials online. I think like DigitalOcean has one that'll like show you, that's like pretty good, and it'll show you how to like set up public key authentication. But it's more secure than the password because you don't have to remember the password, and also it'll like give you just like more like strength, I guess, than a password could. Yeah. And yeah, just like make sure you know how to use SSH and just be comfortable with it because you're gonna need it for the competition. Yeah. You also have FTP. It's just a file transfer protocol that you can use to like transfer files from like one host to another. By default, or like for just like plain FTP, the connection is like not encrypted, so you can just like see all the message or like all like the like packets, I guess, in like plain text. Um, yeah, and you also have like configurations on here that may not be secure, such as like maybe you have like anonymous user login, or like some like user just has like more permissions than they should. So just like know what those configurations look like and like be able to like secure them. And FTP also has like two modes, like active and passive. So active FTP, the command channel. Here's a good example. So for active, the command channel is I guess for both, the command channel is specified by the client. However, for active FTP, the server makes a connection back to the client, while passive, the client just makes a connection to the server for the data. So active FTP it may be like harder kind of to like secure, like to maybe set up firewall rules on there, because you have like the fact that it makes a connection back to the client may be tricky. Maybe the client only like allows like outgoing connections, and when the server tries to make like a incoming connection back to the client, it like declines, or the server doesn't allow like outgoing connections. Um, yeah, so like passive FTP might be easier to set up for your firewall rules, because the server only has to accept like incoming connections on those like ports, and like the client only has to allow like outgoing connections. Yeah, you also have like HTTP, HTTPS. You've probably all seen this before. Yeah, just like sending and like receiving data from like file servers like on the web. You can have like different requests and like headers, like get, like what get will like request data, and like post will like send data. It's also like it might be useful to know the like the codes that it sends back. So it might sound like a 200, like you were like able to connect successfully, or maybe it sounds like a 403, like permission denied, and you might know like something's wrong if you see that. Yeah. You also have IMAP and SMTP. Sorry. This is like a mail service. SMTP. I don't know if you can see it. It's really tiny in that diagram, but SMTP allows you to like send like mail to your mail server, and it's also used for communicating like between mail servers. So the mail servers will like send and receive data using SMTP, and POP3 or IMAP is used just for like receiving the mail from your mail server. So you send the mail with SMTP to your mail server, and then if you have any mail in there, you can like retrieve it with POP3 or IMAP. Logging, it's not scored. It's not a scored service, but it's really helpful for like visualizing what's actually happening on your infrastructure. So this will let you know like if a service is down, and it'll give you like kind of like a brief description of like what's wrong with the service. I don't know if you can see it there, but yeah, all that like in red, those like problems that are like happening with the service, and then like the green, I believe it's just like okay, it's able to like it's like up and running, it's doing its thing. Yeah, this is very useful for like actual like day of competition, like see what's wrong. And you also have like databases. Yeah, you can just like store various kinds of information. By default, it'll like listen on port 3303, and like it can be interacted with like SQL client. For this one, I'd probably just like understand what the configurations look like, and like again, just like what might be some like insecure configurations that allow like red team access, or like to mess around with like your computer or your box or service. Yeah, all three, I guess. Yeah, not much like more to talk about, I don't think. Yeah, just like be comfortable and like know what it is. You also have Docker. Docker kind of like allows you to have containers that are running on your system. It's like similar to like virtual machines, but it's like also just different. Yeah, like so you can have like services that are like running inside of containers, and yeah, it's kind of like a form of virtualization that's like on top of like your host operating system. So you might have like a Docker, like a box with like Docker that's running some like form of service that you then have to secure. Yeah, you also have kind of like 4 different components, or I guess yeah, like components for Docker. The Docker file kind of just like contains like instructions like how to build a Docker image, and like the Docker image just like contains kind of like all like the necessary like information to like run that Docker container. So it might contain like the like the executable, as well as just like libraries and like tools that it needs to actually run that Docker container. Containers themselves are like actually what are like running. They're like the live instances of like the Docker images, and these will like actually be running, for example, that service on your system. And yeah, you can also, there's also like Docker Compose, which can be used to like manage like multi-container applications. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else. Yep, that's it. Anybody have any questions? No? All right, cool.
Yeah, so like I said, just go over this stuff on your own time and definitely just try and play around and bring it up on your own. Play around with these services. That's probably going to be the best experience you possibly get. Yeah. So the question is, where are these slides going to be posted? So if you saw my announcement yesterday, I started sending out, or me or one of your team members or another person in the club sent you an invitation to the IRSeC Discord. So I'm going to be posting it in the IRSeC Discord. If you are not in the Discord, if you just haven't joined yet, or if you haven't got an invitation, first, if you were a part of a full team that signed up, ask the person that sent that initial form. They should have information about that. If that's not you, then just reach out to me. I'll get you into that server. I'm gonna post it in probably the announcements channel. Yeah, along with the recording. Any other questions for me or Alexi for Linux? No? Okay, cool. So now it is going to be Maddie's turn to present about Windows. See you, Alexi. Okay. Yeah. I don't have my like thing in the beginning, so you can start.
Oh, this is fancy looking. Alrighty, so I'm Maddie. I'm a member of the Windows Black team, and we're going to be talking about Windows today. Alright, so just an overview about what we're going to talk about. Now, first off, firewalls. Firewalls, obviously very important. You've been over this. You already know that. Now, two ways that we can look at the firewall information is two commands. Now, wf.msc is something you can run in command line, which you can access by typing cmd in your search. And that is going to pull up the GUI, like the nice pretty version of Windows Defender Firewall. And then that will give you a lot of options for just like changing them, doing public, private firewall. And then if you want to do this through command line, you can use the netsh command. And then once you type that, it'll give you a lot of options for additional commands you can tack on to see all of your options. And once you're in Windows Defender Firewall, you can do lots of things, obviously, as I mentioned, and logging is one of those things. Now, the way you're going to access that is when you're on like the home screen of Windows Defender Firewall, you can go to the Properties tab on the right side, and then that'll eventually give you options to start logging. And then that's obviously helpful, as they said, just so you know what's going on your network. Now, all right, and some useful tools. So sysinternals is a really important tool. Now, this is one that you might have to get yourself, but that's super easy. You can just type sysinternals in, Google or Edge or whatever you want to use. And you can download it, and then once you get that, then all those tools will be available to you, like Process Monitor. Pretty simple. You can just see the processes, and all of these are pretty straightforward, but you just got to make sure that you have sysinternals. And then, once you have that, then you can access all these tools by just typing their name or any other command in your command line. All right, and now some more useful commands. Now these are going to be in PowerShell, which if you don't know is separate from command line. To get to this, you're going to have to type PowerShell into your search bar, and it's going to be the blue one. Now, so there's obviously a lot of different ones, like netstat, ipconfig. Now, ipconfig is actually really similar, as it says right there, to ifconfig on Linux. And these are all just really helpful so that you kind of know what's going on in your computer. All right. Now, group policy. This is also obviously very important, just like everything is. All right, and you can really just change like permissions, change what different groups can do. And there's lots of different kind of groups like guests, admin, obviously just like your regular users. And that's a good thing to just kind of look around in. Just like kind of poke around, explore, see what you can do. All right, and then the registry. Obviously, you can read what it says there. So you can just type registry editor in your search bar to access this and kind of just see what's going on. And this is another one where it's good to just poke around, Google, like, what can I do with registry? What does this mean? What's an H key? Right. And now users and groups. These are, again, important. And as I say, disable guest users immediately because that is a really easy way for Red Team to get in. All right, and now some of these things like dsa.msc right at the bottom, those are things that you might need to add on. And that's just something to look up. If it's not working for you, look it up. There's probably a good reason why. And most of these commands like get local group, you're going to run these ones in PowerShell. Typically, when you have a command that's like get dash, like capitalized word, that's typically PowerShell, kind of just like the syntax that they use. Yeah. And logging, as we went over, is very important. Now you can type eventviewer.msc, and most of these .msc commands you're going to access by doing the Windows tab R, and that's going to kind of let you pull up all these different tools. And yeah, obviously logs are very important. All right, and now here's some common Windows services. And a lot of these are used on Windows servers. So there's two different types of Windows machines. There's like a regular Windows client, which is just like your computer, you know, and then there's a Windows server. And a Windows server helps you manage other devices. They're also called like a domain controller. And so like Active Directory, really all of these are going to be important for using and maintaining a Windows server. All right, now we'll go into more detail about these. So the Active Directory, in the Active Directory, there are lots of objects. These can be like a group, a device, lots of different things. And this is kind of just like a platform for maintaining and controlling those. DHCP, I won't go into a ton of detail on these. Max, if you want to add anything, if I'm missing anything, but these slides are pretty comprehensive. DHCP, this just assigns IP addresses. Yeah.
Did everyone have a chance to look at the intro to networking slides which I posted yesterday? Or if not, that's cool. But that's going to be pretty critical to understand. Just to like have a background into this stuff, like when we talk about something like DHCP, where you're receiving an IP address, you need to understand what like an IP address is actually. So if that's kind of like nonsense to you, that's all right. Just make sure you go and check out that presentation which I sent in the announcements yesterday, and it'll give you a much better context into some of this stuff if you are not familiar with networking and stuff like that. And just like kind of down the line, if you still don't understand that stuff, that's all right. Just let me know, and maybe we can organize like another workshop to talk about that if you still think that we're lacking in that information. But yeah, so check that out if you haven't already. Thank you.
All right, now DNS. This is a domain name system. Pretty clear what it is. And this is just a really helpful service, obviously helps your computer run. Here's a little more information. Yeah. I won't go into a ton of detail about these just because it's all pretty clearly on the slides. And then the server message block. And so these are all services that I believe will be scored. So you just want to make sure these are up and running. Yeah, I don't have a ton of detail about these. All right. So that's mostly it. Kind of ran through that presentation. And if you all want some like demos on how to use the earlier tools, I do have a Windows VM pulled up, and like you can just ask if you want me to show you. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got really fast. Actually.
No, you're good. You're good.
It's a record for me actually.
Yeah. So like Maddie said, if you want to stick around and take a look at like doing this in live time, then she will be going over that in a VM that she has. Just some next steps that I just want to before you do more of that. Definitely, like I keep saying it, but this is definitely like the best way for you to learn is if you have hands-on experience. Is to do it in OpenStack. Does everybody here have an OpenStack account? Raise your hand if you don't have an OpenStack account. Okay, that's cool. So I would say go into RITSEC announcements and hit Control F or Command F and search for the word OpenStack. You should see instructions that I posted at some point when I was doing a presentation on how to request that. So request an account. And this will be, or if you have your own environment that you want to like play around with VMs, say you have like VMware and you want to play around with it, you could even go just like one of the labs here at RIT, like NetSec. Don't go to AirGap because that's like the one place you don't want to go because you won't have internet connection. But if you go to, like NetSec, some of the routing and switching labs in Golisano, and just start playing around with these, get these services up. I like highly recommend it. It's a great way for you to just get your hands-on experience, and you won't be going to the competition blind. Some other next steps. So if you did join the Discord, make sure that you requested a role for your team. So if you're team 3, then you would say blue 3, or team 6, blue 6, etc. That way we can give you the proper permissions for you to talk with your team in the channel. I am working on that as the requests come in, so I'm going to start doing some of those today. And yeah, so just keep your eyes peeled for announcements. I'm going to be moving over to the IRSeC Discord to make future announcements about workshops and things like that. So make sure you're looking there as well. How I think the next workshop is going to go, if like according to schedule. Next week is going to be fall break. I was originally going to have a workshop that day and have an asynchronous one on Brick City. However, I think it would be better for people like being able to attend if we have an asynchronous one next weekend. So what I want to do next weekend is I worked with Red Team to get some vulnerable images. And so, like I said, you're going to go on your OpenStack account, or if you don't have one, make sure you request one before that. You're going to go on your OpenStack account, and you're going to see some vulnerable Linux, vulnerable Windows images. And you would just follow that the same way you would launch any other VM. You would launch this instance, and you will have some services that are intentionally destroyed. And it's going to be up to you to just kind of look around, kind of figure out what's going on. Why is this stuff not working? Look in your configuration files, see if there's extra users that Red Team added, stuff like that. So that's going to be next weekend. I'm just giving you a little insight into that. And then for for that time, you're going to work on that. Just try and navigate through those. Hopefully you can use the info that Maddie's going to give you when she goes over her Windows demo right now, to just kind of look around, get some of that information. The week following that, during Brick City, I'd like to have a in-person workshop where we go over like actual incident response fundamentals. So having a 5-minute plan. What are you going to do in the first 5 minutes of the competition? How are you going to write your incident response report? Some more stuff into what I'm supposed to look for. It's going to be the presenter. That's going to be Leah. She's part of CCDC, so she has some of those insights. You're also going to be going over injects. I'm going to have my injects lead, Raina, talk to you about that. So the goal is to have you as prepared as possible. And yeah, I'm going to hopefully have some more an announcement going up in that. So just make sure you're in the Discord, or if you haven't, reach out to the right people. and yeah, just keep a lookout for that. And Maddie, if you want to go over the demo now. So yeah. Perfect. Thank you.
Good. Okay. Yeah, we're good.
All right, so I can move things on here. It'll show.
Yeah. Do you want to move it up here?
Oh, perfect. I don't even have to connect everything. Alright, I'm going to start off simple. Just going to pull up Windows Defender Firewall so you all can see what it looks like. So right now I have my command line, which I get by typing cmd. And I'm just going to run that command, wf.msc. I'm going to give it a minute. So this is Windows Defender Firewall. And in here we can look at all of our rules. I currently have several rules, and these are allowing or disallowing connections to be made. So this is my inbound rules, and then we've got outbound rules, and this is just for all the traffic coming in or out of my computer. Now to do logging, which is very important, we're going to go back to this home screen right here, and then we're going to go over here to properties. Now we're going to go to logging right here, and then click customize. Now we can select what we want to log, like drop packets, which are things that Windows Defender Firewall has denied. Like said, no, you cannot have that traffic going in or out. So I'm going to click yes, and then this successful connections, things that Windows Defender Firewall allowed. And so I click yes. Unfortunately, I cannot access my firewall log because my VM is kind of broken. But you would navigate to this file path right here and go view that log. Yeah, so that is logging. Exit out of all of this. All right. Yeah, and then for the command line interface, again, just going to be netsh adv firewall. And as you can see, I will expand this a little bit. Come on. This is going to give you all the commands that you can use. Lots of different options. I just prefer the GUI because it's a little easier to look at. But yeah, you can pick really either of those. All right, and now sysinternals. The thing with sysinternals, like I mentioned, is you're going to have to download them. So I already have it downloaded, which is why it comes up as an app. Otherwise, you'll have to just Google it and then go through the install process, which you'll get from like the Microsoft Store or whatever. It's really easy. And so you can open the internal suite. I prefer to just use the command line. It's a little easier. And right now I'm forgetting if it's CMD or PowerShell, so we'll see. Now, to look at the processes, and now I'm misspelling things. There we go. So now I'm putting up Process Monitor, which is a part of the sysinternals suite, or whatever they call it. So this, as you can see, is going to show all the processes that are currently running. Now it's got you the time, the process name, the process ID, operation, and then all the details. And up here, obviously, you got a lot of different options. You can see all the processes running. Let's see if I can look at a few others. Look at system monitoring. All right, and so I have to do this as an administrator, so I'll do sudo. This might work. Yeah, okay. This one's not going to work for me. But yeah, so those are all the tools, and you're just going to make sure you have sysinternals, and then run all those commands in your command line. All right, now we can look at PowerShell. So first we'll look at NatStat, really simple. And this, it's going to take a minute, but it's going to show like all the connections that I have, all the network connections. Pretty simple. It's going to show the protocol, which is nice. This is TCP. Might have some UDP pop up. Yeah, and it'll just show all the addresses, the state. I'll let a few more pop up. Yeah. So you can see that some of them are with IPs, some of them are not. All right, and then I saw this. I'm just going to do Control C. Come on. Wow. Alright, that's not working, so I'm just going to reopen PowerShell. So that was the wrong button.
Oh, Maddie, I have a question.
Yeah.
Because I don't really understand Windows that much myself.
Yeah.
Is the Windows like registry basically what /etc is for Linux, where it's like has all like the configuration files and stuff?
Yeah. So registry is basically just Etsy for Windows.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, now I have PowerShell up one more time. Now ipconfig, as I already went over, kind of just shows you the basics. We've got all the different options. On different computers, it's going to be different. Like this one, I've only like Ethernet because it's a VM. Yeah, and then we can look at like net share. Spelled that wrong. Yeah, so then all those are going to have different outputs, which you should probably try out, see what it looks like, see what it's going to tell you. All right, now group policy. Now you can get to this by doing the GP edit in Windows R, which I'll actually show you. So you can click the Windows button in R, and then it pops up with this. So gpedit.msc. So it pops up the local group policy editor, and this will let you see really all of the configurations. Actually taking its sweet time. Right, and so we can just look at all the settings, see like, really just, there's a lot in here. This is something that you want to just kind of go through. Like we can look at our system settings, like what each group can have access to, like for scripts. We can see who can run Windows PowerShell scripts. First, the computer shut down. They go into a lot of detail with every single permission. And so it's great to kind of look through these, make a plan, what do I want to allow, what do I want to prevent. These are all it's very helpful, very powerful. Like display instructions and shutdown scripts as they run. Like what if I can disable that. And now the local group can do that. So very helpful. Yeah. All right, now look at the registry. As it got out. All right. And so for registry, you can just type registry. Very easy. I've already pulled up. This is the registry editor. You can go in, see all the registry keys, kind of look at them. Mine's kind of empty. But yeah, so you can just look at all the registry keys. Kind of go and explore this, Google what different ones do. Google's really your best friend. Yeah. But yeah, like Maxim said, registry is kind of like Etsy. All right. Now we can look at like the local users. So we can look at the local group. So back in PowerShell, I'm going to spell things correctly this time. So look, now we can see all of our local groups. We've got lots of different ones. We have access control assistance operators, administrators, guests, power users. So for example, we would want to disable that guest group because they have too many permissions. We don't want that. All right. There's all those. And yeah, so a lot of the other services like Active Directory, I can't show you right now because I don't have a Windows Server VM. But those are things that you'll just want to Google. Maybe Google like, how does the Windows Server work? How do I navigate a Windows Server VM? Just because it isn't kind of an unfamiliar system setup. And it's good to just know what you're going into. But yeah, that's most of what I got for that. Yeah, I hope that was kind of helpful.
Thank you so much, Maddie.
Yeah,
Everyone
sure.
clap it up.
Beautiful. Okay, yeah, so I hope you were able to get something from it. I know there's a lot of information at once, especially if you're new to this, you don't maybe haven't seen this stuff before. But yeah, if you don't have an OpenStack account, just like I said, go to announcements, look up search for the word OpenStack so you can find the instructions. And if you are unable to, then message me and I will send you those instructions. But yeah, that's a great way to learn. Hands-on experience is always probably the most useful way you can get prepared for this because this is a hands-on competition. Does anybody have any questions about just how the competition works, what it's going to look like, any technical questions about Linux or Windows. Yes.
So for Linux, so we were talking about firewall.
Yeah. So IP tables is a program on Linux which basically controls what is like the inbound and outbound traffic that is allowed on your Linux system. So it kind of just blocks certain stuff from getting to you or from going out. So a firewall on your. So that is not the command for red team. So firewall D. Whenever you see something like something D, you'll see a firewall D, SSH D, VS FTP D. That is a Linux daemon. So what a daemon is, it is a running, I believe it's a running instance of a service. So whenever you have a service like SSH, right, that's something which is constantly running on your device. It's accepting connections, stuff like that. That has a daemon running. So that's why you see SSHD. So if you do something like systemctl, that's how you interact with the current services that are running. Systemctl status SSHD, you'll see the current status of that service. So it's not a red team tool or what red team uses. That's just kind of what it looks like on your system. Yeah, and I don't want you to get IP table stuff like that confused with something like pfSense. pfSense is what you're gonna have. Even though the infrastructure is not public yet, I haven't told anyone on blue team. It has always been like this, so I'm gonna tell you now. The router that you're gonna be using that is gonna be pfSense. So it's always good to have just one person on your team constantly checking pfSense, because that is where you have your firewall. So if you're looking at your infrastructure, so this is like your infrastructure, right? And you have your router right here. You might have your Linux box over here, which has its own, I don't even know how to that's a firewall. So it has its own firewall. So if you have something maybe going from the router here, maybe something gets through the router, gets over here, it's going to block it. But the router also has its own firewall to block stuff going in from here. So I don't want you to get those two confused, that you say you have I set up my firewall on my Linux host, so therefore I took care of the firewall. No, you're going to have a router, and that's going to have its own firewall. That's going to be your firewall protecting your entire LAN. Yeah. So I don't know if that answered your question. Yeah. Any other questions, technical or not? Nope. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you everybody for coming. I hope you were able to learn something.